Hi, welcome back to Comic Issues Daily, presented by I Have Comic Issues, and the place where we bring you more news than the Bugle or the Planet. Is Sunday, September 14th, 2025, and we are recapping the comic book news from Saturday, September 13th. I'm your host, Bryant, and today we got 9 huge stories to break down, from Marvel's DC crossover that has fans buzzing to delays and the best sellers at DC, to some fantastic deep dive lists, and even uh, a record smashing Kickstarter. Let's get started. And hey, a Southern Comic Geek, thank you for watching from London. But before we do that, remember we are supporting a GoFundMe for Brandon from Mon Comics, whose family lost their house in a house fire last Sunday. The link to the GoFundMe is up here on the screen, so please check that out if you get a chance. All right, our first story of the day is from bleedingcool.com. They revealed that Marvel and DC are collaborating on a project that brings Captain America and Wonder Woman together to face off against a classic World War II villain. Anytime these two giants cross over is an event, but this one is grabbing attention because of how perfectly the characters fit the setting. Both were forged in the fires of World War II storytelling, and both symbolize resistance against tyranny, making this team up feel natural, not forced. And fans have long hoped for more Marvel and DC crossovers since the amalgam comic era of the 1990s, when the publishers briefly merged characters into strange hybrids with Dark Claw. While those stories were more novelty than lasting canon, this new crossover appears to be aimed for resonance rather than gimmickry. If handled well, it could reignite interest in cross-company projects that have been mostly absent for decades. Collectors are already buzzing, as Marvel and DC's crossover issues tend to be scarce and gain long-term value. Whether this becomes a one-shot, a mini-series, or the spark of a larger initiative, it's almost guaranteed to be a sellout in key items for 2025. What do you think? Is this just a special event or the start of a new age for Marvel and DC crossovers? Drop your thoughts below. And CBR reported disappointing news for Batman fans. The highly anticipated sequel to Batman, Hush, has been delayed until 2026. No official reason has been given, but speculation ranges from creative adjustments to scheduling conflicts within DC's publishing slate. Considering the monumental legacy of the original Hush by Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee, expectations are sky high, and the company may simply want to ensure the sequel doesn't fall short. The delay is frustrating, especially since hype had been building for months. Fans were eager to see how DC would follow up on the most acclaimed Batman arc of all times, yet sometimes delays are necessary to avoid missteps. And poorly executed Hush 2 would be more damage to the brand than waiting an extra year. For collectors, the delay could actually fuel anticipation. When it finally hits shelves, expect heavy pre-orders and sellouts, especially if DC positions it as a flagship release for the year. But the long wait is definitely a test for fans' patience. Are you willing to wait for quality, or does this kind of delay kill your expectation for a book? Let me check the chat real quick. Hey, Mon, how are you? Hope everything's doing well. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. And hope everything's going well for y'all. And hello, Christopher. All right. And Jason from over in London on a little business trip. All right, let's move on to our next story. CBR has reported or highlighted the unexpected success of Harley Quinn and an Elvira crossover, which has turned into a surprise bestseller. On the surface, it might have seemed like an odd pairing, possibly. Gotham's unpredictable clown princess sharing a book with the Mistress of Darkness. Best known for her campy horror style, but readers have embraced the mix of comedy, chaos, and spooky charm, propelling the title to strong sales. Harley Quinn is already one of DC's most reliable characters in terms of sales, but combining her with Elvira tapped into two very different fan bases. Hardcore DC readers showed up, but so did the horror fans and casual collectors drawn in by the Elvira cult appeal. The result is a crossover that's outselling expectations and sparking mainstream attention. This kind of success could inspire DC to take more risks with unconventional team ups. Harley has become a character who can adapt to almost any genre: crime, comedy, romance, or horror, making her the perfect candidate for a quirky crossover that grabs attention. Would you pair Harley with Who would you pair Harley with next for another surprise hit? And from Comic Watch, they've also reported that Deadpool and Wolverine #9 will introduce an all-new lineup of Apocalypse Horsemen. These figures have always been pivotal in X-Men history, serving as extensions of Apocalypse's power and changing the course of mutant kind. Whenever they appear, changing the course of mutant kind wherever they appear. Now, Marvel is tying Wade Wilson and Logan into this legacy, ensuring their series leaves a permanent mark on mutant lore. The timing is perfect, with Deadpool and Wolverine dominating pop culture after the box office smash hit. Marvel is giving comic readers a storyline that feels equally big. Reinventing the Horsemen through this series is a clever way to tie in history, humor, and brutality, all while keeping the stakes high. From a collector standpoint, this issue could be significant. Anytime new Horsemen are introduced, first appearances become hot commodities. If this lineup sticks, Deadpool and Wolverine 9 could be a long-term key. Do you prefer the classic Horsemen, or are you ready to see a brand new team redefine the role? And Marvel is continuing to honor one of its most celebrated alternate realities with the 30th anniversary of Age of Apocalypse, spotlighted by X-Men of Apocalypse #2 this December. According to Comic Watch, the original 1995 crossover remains iconic, reimagining Marvel's mutants in darker, more tragic roles under the rule of Apocalypse. For many fans, it was a formative event that defined the potential of alternate realities in mainstream comics. The anniversary issue serves as a dual purpose. There's nostalgia for longtime readers while introducing new fans to one of Marvel's most daring experiments. Revisiting this world allows Marvel to play with beloved designs and character arcs without disrupting current continuity. It's a smart move that blends reverence with relevance. Collectors are also eyeing these issues as keepsakes. Major anniversaries tied to popular events usually enjoy strong sales, and Age of Apocalypse is a name that carries weight. Do you think the Age of Apocalypse still holds up after 30 years, or is Marvel leaning on old glories? Comicbook.com also ran a feature exploring 5 Marvel characters that were directly inspired by DC counterparts. And this goes along with what I've said in a past stream before, that R&D in some aspects doesn't stand for research and development, kind of sometimes stands for rip off and duplicate. In the history, so these are Marvel characters that were inspired by DC counterparts, and the history is fascinating. For example, the Fantastic Four, Marvel's first family, bear striking similarities to DC's Challengers of the Unknown, created by Jack Kirby before he moved to Marvel. Likewise, Marvel's Nova Corps were a clear riff on DC's Green Lantern Corps, both acting as intergalactic police forces powered by energy-based weapons. The parallels don't stop there. X-Men launched in 1963, but DC's Doom Patrol debuted a few months earlier with a strikingly similar team of outcasts led by a wheelchair-bound genius setup. Even sidekicks weren't immune. Bucky Barnes filled the same role for Captain America that Robin did for Batman. And when Marvel introduced the New Mutants in 1980s, it was hard not to compare them to DC's Teen Titans, a group of young heroes mentored by established veterans. The article shows how influence flows both ways between the two companies, but in these cases, Marvel clearly borrowed DC's blueprints. Rather than being shameless ripoffs, however, many of these Marvel versions became even more successful than their inspirations, pr- proving that imitation in comics can sometimes evolve into something iconic. Which of these Marvel DC parallels do you think worked out best, and which feels the most blatant? And comicbook.com also spotlights 10 DC villains whose motivations actually carried some validity, even if their crimes were unforgivable. First up is Pariah, whose guilt and suffering and crisis on Infinite Earths made him sympathetic despite his destructive role. The Crime Syndicate represents a world where power corrupts absolutely, a twisted but pointed commentary on unchecked authority. Then you have immortals like Vandal Savage, who views that humanity needs firm guidance, comes across as harsh but understandable. Amanda Waller, often more anti-hero than villain, believes sacrificing a few for the many is justified, an argument that has sparked debate for decades. Raj Al Ghul takes environmentalism to extreme, but his core desire is to save the planet is hard to argue with. The list continues with Sinestro, who sought order through fear, Maxwell Lord, who tried to control heroes for humanity's safety, and Poison Ivy, whose eco-terrorism stems from real-world concerns about climate change. And finally, Mr. Freeze and General Razad round out the list, one driven by love and desperation, the other by a misguided sense of Kryptonian superiority. The article underscores how DC's villains are often layered with nuance, reflecting real-world debates in heightened fictional form. It's one reason why DC's Rose Gallery is regarded as the best in the business. Which of these villains do you think actually had the strongest point, even if their methods crossed the line? Another feature from comicbook.com ranked Marvel's 10 most dangerous super geniuses, and it's a lineup that shows how brains can be deadlier than brawn. At the top is Reed Richards, whose unmatched intellect has saved the universe, but also created catastrophic mistakes like the Negative Zone prison. Right alongside him is Tony Stark, whose reckless innovation gave us Iron Man and disasters like Ultron. No list like this would be complete without Doctor Doom, a master of both science and sorcery, or Hank Pym, whose unstable genius birthed both incredible breakthroughs and horrific consequences. Bruce Banner also makes the cut. It's not just the Hulk's strength that makes him dangerous, but the scientist behind who tinkers with forces beyond control. The ranking continues with Norman Osborn, who weaponized intellect into one of Marvel's deadliest alter egos, and T'Challa, the Black Panther, whose combination of genius and political power makes him uniquely formidable. Then there's the High Evolutionary, whose obsession with forced evolution has nearly remade Earth itself. MODOK, a living weapon of intelligence, and Amadeus Cho, the boy genius whose brilliance makes him one of Marvel's most unpredictable figures. The list highlights that in Marvel, sheer intellect can reshape destinies just as much as fist and power. Heroes and villains alike walk the razor's edge between salvation and destruction, all dictated by their brains. Which Marvel genius do you think is the most dangerous, and who deserves to be higher on the list? And then finally, Comic Book Watch has spotlighted the runaway Kickstarter success of I Roved Out in Search of Truth and Love, a fantastic erotic comic that has raised over $437,000 against a modest $20,000 goal with weeks still left. The story follows Cinderella, a drifting adventurer, and Meryl, her semi-retired assassin friend, as they bumble through an epic quest they'd rather avoid. The mix of humor, romance, and fantasy has clearly struck a chord with backers. This isn't just about big numbers, it's a reminder that independent creators can thrive outside of Marvel and DC. With options for signed editions, bundles, and exclusive art prints, the campaign has turned into both a storytelling and collector's event. For fans and creators alike, it proves that crowdfunding is more than a side path. It's becoming one of the main engines of comic book success in 2025. Would you back indie projects like this, or do you mostly stick with Marvel and DC? And there are a lot of other great indie crowdfunder projects out there. I know that Legion of Comics and DJ Links and Sector 2815 have been supporting one. I think it's Eric, or I believe it's the name. So check out their channel and you'll see the one that they're talking about. I've heard it's pretty good. And finally, that's a wrap for today's Comic Issues Daily recap of comic book news from September 13th. For Marvel and DC finally teaming up again to Batman's delays, Harley surprise sales, indie comics breaking records. It's been a packed news day, but I want to hear from you. Which of these stories do you think is the biggest? Before I go, I would like to invite everybody to come check out my interview tonight with Heroes for Hire Comic Club, Matt. I'll be talking with him at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern for Comic Channel Origins, and talk to him about how he has ran his YouTube channel and gotten to where he is in his time on YouTube. So please check that out and don't miss any future episodes that we have. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss an update. And as always, big thanks to our sponsor of I Have Comic Issues, Ron's Comic Closet, where you can grab back issues, keys, and more with 20% off using your code I Have Issues at checkout. Thank you very much. Have a happy Sunday, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.